I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. Not because I had other plans, but because, as an African American man born to a single mother in a low-income part of New York City, statistically, I was much more likely to be 6 feet under than standing on this stage. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about adversity, something we all experience, and something I believe can become a source of advantage. I started learning about adversity at a very early age. I have a lot of stories from those days, like the times we did without things like heat or electricity. My mother worked 12 and 18-hour days, but sometimes she needed to make a choice between paying those bills and feeding us. And sometimes just the thought that they might be coming to shut off the heat was the very worst part. Kids from poverty face a range of adversity, including deprivation, health risks, and even the way that people treat them. In my case, the health risk was that I weighed more than 250 pounds before 8th grade, which is typical because poor kids are 3 times as likely to be overweight. The story I'll never forget about the way people treat you involved a man who was both my math teacher and the high school soccer coach. You see, despite my weight, I went out for high school soccer. Really, I was just trying to fit in. But this man had nothing but disdain for the fat kid on his team. You would expect kids to be cruel, and they were, but he was much worse. He topped it off by making sure I never played a single moment in a single game, no matter how hard I worked or how far ahead we were. That year, I also moved up to an accelerated math class, and he was the teacher. Within the first week, he told me I didn't belong there, because you see, the other kids were all from very privileged families. I was the only fat kid, the only shy kid, the only black kid, and the only poor kid. But I never gave up, never missed a math class, and never missed a soccer practice. Now, I will tell you, I never got very good at soccer. But I was good enough academically to handle almost any class. And so by the end of the year, he had to give me an honors grade. And I learned to never give up. 20 years later, during the final miles of my first Ironman triathlon, the first of 8 I've done so far, thank you. Thank you. That early life adversity became my advantage, because you see, finishing the Ironman could never be as difficult as being the fat kid bullied by a malicious adult. Ultimately, my life went in a great place. An Ivy League degree, an MBA, a Fortune 100 career, and now my own company. And over the years, the adversity of my early life has often been a source of strength, so much so that the adversity had become my advantage. So I became interested in the sometimes paradoxical relationship between adversity and advantage. Why is it that adversity causes some people to break while others use it to excel? I believe people break when they fall into a cycle of fear and paralysis. Here's how it works. When facing adversity, we all feel fear. The fear we won't succeed, and that's perfectly natural. The problem is when fear turns into a paralysis, which is an inability to respond productively to the adversity. And that always leads to more adversity. Either the initial gets worse or a new adversity arises. Most people don't even know when they fall into adversity. In my business as an executive coach, I work with incredibly inspired people who accomplish amazing things. And I see others trapped in fear and paralysis. It's the person in a hopeless marriage, afraid to contemplate divorce. The entrepreneur so frightened that she micromanages everything and paralyzes her company. The outdated executive, desperately clinging to the past and terrified of the future. Or the company, taking shortcuts to profits by damaging the environment. I also believe that fear and paralysis have become pervasive in our culture. And most of it's about fear of change. But we live in a time of unprecedented change. Everything from the way we communicate, the way we work, even the way we think are changing constantly. Even the very makeup of our society is changing. For example, by 2045, the United States will be a majority-minority country, and that frightens a lot of people. Several weeks ago, we watched as migrant children were treated with hostility. Children as young as 5, frightened, hungry, and alone, some even fleeing sexual abuse. Now, the immigration debate is very complicated. I don't pretend to know the answer, but I do know this. Treating children with hostility is not the answer. Treating children with hostility is a sign of fear and paralysis. So how do we break this cycle? I believe the answer is actually to embrace our adversity, and that means 3 things. The first is about courage, but not the way we usually think of courage. This courage isn't about fearlessness. This courage actually acknowledges fear and then decides that something else is more important than the fear. Malala Yousafzai, the 17-year-old Pakistani women's rights activist, is afraid of another assassination attempt. But she's decided that fighting for every kid's right to an education is more important than her fear. The second thing sounds easy, but is actually very difficult. Ask more questions and question your beliefs. At times of fear, we crave certainty. We stop asking questions and we cling to our own beliefs. Certainty becomes a type of anchor in the storm of adversity. The problem is that anchor can pull us down into paralysis. We see this in our popular news media, where rancor and dogma have replaced respectful debate, and there's very little insight. Always remember, asking courageous questions at a time of adversity leads to the advantage of insight. And finally, learn to imagine different realities. This actually takes me back to the other part of my high school story. So there were a lot of people like that soccer coach, but the majority of my teachers were very different. They were excellent. They inspired me to see past the adversity in my life, and they taught me how to imagine different realities, realities that look a lot like what my life ultimately became. Now today, we talk about this ability to imagine different realities all the time. We call it innovation. And it's the holy grail in the business world. But I needed to become good at innovation long before business school. So once again, early life adversity became my advantage. So here's the most important thing I want to tell you about fear and paralysis. They tend to bring out the very worst in us at precisely the times when we need to be at our best. And this is one of those times when we need to be at our best. We have astonishing advancements in technology, but advancements that often raise ethical and moral questions. We have tremendous innovation, but that also comes with tremendous disruption. In many ways, we have unprecedented economic productivity, but we've yet to figure out how that productivity might benefit all of society rather than just a fortunate few. We need to turn this type of adversity into our advantage. So here's what I learned 40 years ago as an overweight, low-income kid in New York City. If you want to thrive in a world of constant change, break the cycle of fear and paralysis. Embrace adversity with courage. Question your own beliefs and learn to imagine different realities. If you do, you may find that much of your adversity becomes your advantage. My name is Gerry Valentine, and I thought that was an idea worth sharing. Thank you.